In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read ancient tomes, the order of the Abercast. We are the brave and bold.
Stigmata Studios presents The Jinn Jihad. The Jinn Jihad kicks your face with myths, mysteries, epic battles, suicide bombers, quirky characters, and divine power armor. In this epic graphic novel, the warrior archangels descend on a city in chaos. It's all-out war. The non-standard assembly battles an ancient terrorist organization and their ultimate weapon, a corrected, magically enhanced, unstoppable monster, the Jinn. This graphic novel is a wild ride. It's one part distant Arab myth, one part Old Testament angelic vengeance, and one part unique heroic tough guys. Available on Amazon. Get more info on the Jinn Jihad and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
On the other hand, while Cain, governed by divine ambition, toiled and tilled the soil to make 2 blades of grass grow where there was only one, Abel, the human progeny of human parents, felt no urge or unrest, himself a creature of Jehovah through Adam and Eve. He was perfectly content to tend the flocks also created by God, and to accept a livelihood from their divinely begotten increase without labor or exercising initiative. The docile attitude was more pleasing to the god Jehovah, who was extremely jealous of his progenitive as creator. Therefore, he cordially accepted the offering of Abel, obtained without effort or initiative, but scorned the offering of Cain because it was derived through his own divine creative instinct, akin to that of Jehovah. That was from Max Heindel's Freemasonry and Catholicism. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. Let's get it on.
The Abercast. Occult. History. Conspiracy. Violence.
All right, welcome to the Abercast. I am your widow's son for the evening, John Towers of Stigmata Studios. So Freemasonry February continues, and we're still not really going to get into any of these initiation rituals that I've been promising. We are still sort of stuck out here like an off-road Jeep accident. We're stuck, mired down, upside down, weighed down by all this symbolism and mythology surrounding this fraternal order. To make this all more complicated, these symbols that we're looking at and these figures that we are talking about don't seem to mean just one thing. As we've peeled back the symbolism on antediluvian figures in the Torah and their different skills and how that all figures into these initiations, legends, ancient mythological trinities, and even layers of mathematical principles, these symbols and stories do not have just one layer or aspect to them. Tonight, we're going to talk about one of the more labyrinthian or layered figures or titles or whatever. So this is going to be one of those episodes that ties into a ton of other shows. As this is going to be a giant episode anyways, and a fun one. This is one of those ones. It's in the back of my head. I'm like, I can't wait to do that one. But I don't want to do that one. So we're actually going to get into one of those this evening. It's going to be a giant episode, and always looking to add context to different stories or different versions of the story in this case. You might want to pay attention to other episodes of the show. Well, first and foremost, before we get into other episodes of the show, you might want to grab my graphic novel, The Ages, because it gets into a ton of this stuff. But podcast episodes, the last 2 episodes would be great. Episodes 82, 83, and 84. 76, The Terrifying Angels of Genesis. 71, is World War Zero and Adam's Magic Underpants. Episode 70, The Tower of Babel. 63, The Giants of Kandahar. 20, Those Who Weep for Tammuz. And maybe 37, The Book of Job. And I keep saying this Stone of Destiny thing because eventually, somewhere along the line, we are going to talk about the Jacob's Ladder. And so we need to get a little refresher course on the Stone of Destiny when we do that. So a few episodes ago, we talked about this Master Mason's password, which is Tubal-Cain, and who was this pre-flood character anyways, and we're going to pick right up with that, and we're going to get deep into this Tubal-Cain character and the line and lineage of Eve's son, Cain, later. So we're going to pick right back up with these Master Masons now. In the craft, each of these degrees in the Blue Lodge has a sign, or what they call a do-guard. Now, I mentioned this a few episodes ago. This is like their gang signs that they flash. It's like a whole body kind of like pose or gang sign that they flash. And it's a secret pose, I guess, or position that you have for each of these degrees. So there's actually 2 of them. The guy in charge would flash what they call a do-guard. And the Mason who is being challenged has to do the right sign to answer the do-guard. So I think we'll talk about one. For the apprentice, it's the master holding his left hand palm up right below his belly and his right hand palm down right above his belly, like he was holding an invisible Bible is the idea. And when the apprentice is challenged with his do-guard, he then draws a line across his neck with his right hand. So in the initiation, when the initiate's swearing on the Bible, and during the obligation, they talk about the penalty that he has to pay to tell the secrets or whatever, and it has to do with getting his neck slit or something. So that's the idea: is the do-guard is the reminder of him holding the Bible, I guess, and then the entered apprentice symbol is basically like you're gonna cut my neck. So on and so forth do these do-guards and these signs go throughout the degree. However, there is a last sign, and this is a sign we're going to start this whole thing off with. It's the last sign. It's the grand hailing sign of distress. It is basically putting your arms up in the air, keeping your like elbows parallel to your shoulders, and your forearms up. So it's basically like you're signaling for a field goal, except you put your hands out. Instead of like if you were signaling for a field goal, you put your hands like facing inwards, like they're facing each other. And then you drop your arms down to your sides with spirit, it says. And this sign also has a magic or something, a phrase that you say with it. So you hold your hands up. It's like you're giving up, basically. It's like you're surrendering. Imagine in the war of northern aggression or whatever, a lot of Americans got saved by doing this. There were Masons on both sides, obviously. Same thing with maybe the Revolutionary War. Whenever you got the drop on someone, if they gave you the secret Mason in distress sign, you're like, all right, I won't shoot you, but I'll let you maybe take your gun and let you go or something. I don't know. That's all speculation. But you hold your hands up like that, like you're giving up or whatever, and you say, "Oh Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" Now, here's our question for the evening. Who is this widow's son? Where are the widow's sons out there? And hey, remember the labyrinthian nature of these signs and symbols? None of them are mutually exclusive, right? So if we ask who's the widow's son, we also have to kind of ask who's the widow? And more importantly, who's the dead father? So on the last episode, we spoke of a widow's son. Osiris and Isis and Horus's story. Since Osiris was dead and Isis is alive, Horus is the widow's son. And by extension, Hippocrates is a widow's son. And that's a fascinating implication for me. I got to tell you, I really got wrapped up into this Hippocrates thing. I did a couple illustrations regarding it that they'll be up on Instagram soon. I'm going to do one for each of these Masonic episodes. So the Hippocrates one is pretty heavy metal. So Hippocrates could be the goat rider, is a widow's son, and I think, like I said, that's a fascinating implication. But we're gonna tonight actually go back and see what actual Masonic scholars, and also we have the guy in the cold open that wrote Freemasonry, Catholicism, Max Heindel. He really goes out of his way in that book to say that he's not a Mason, but he is a Mason at heart. So he can tell the secrets, but he still doesn't agree with Catholicism. But he's a fascinating guy as well. He's actually from a secret order called the Rosicrucians, but he's got a lot of great information on this story that we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to go back and see what Max Heindel and some of these other Masonic scholars have to say about this widow's son situation. And I think we're actually going to get into cracking this code. You listen to these people like giving Masonic lessons and stuff, and they're like, it's all about, squaring yourself upright and building a temple, and which is great. I'm sure it is about that stuff too. It's about like, making yourself like a better person and stuff. And I imagine on some level it is too, man. But I have got some great shit to fucking tell you about tonight. So again, we're going to get back to what these Masonic scholars and this Rosicrucian scholar says about the widow's son when they are talking about and telling their stories and legends. I think we're going to be jumping back and forth through at least 3 of the works here, and I will try to call them out to keep them straight as I'm going. Well, hold on. Before we get started, we're going to get started. You know what I'm saying? I want you to get yourself a giant fucking mason jar. You see what I did there? Clear and clean. And I want you to put yourself some ice cubes in there. Take a slice out of a lime or maybe a lemon and pack it in there with that ice. And then I want you to take 2 full shot glasses of your favorite bottom shelf gin. And I want you to pour it in there and mix it around a little bit. And I want you to fill the rest of the jar up with tonic water. And get a chopstick or your finger or maybe a stray mechanical pencil or micron pen and mix it up real good. It's not so much a drink recipe, my friends, as it is a formula for a weapon of mass distraction. So I want you to mix it up and take a couple good pulls from your gin jihad and listen to this. And when we get back, we're going to get into the story. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going off into a little bit of crazy town tonight, everybody. So I hope that you're with me, and let's get this fucking party. Hold on, wait. Bottoms up first. Bottoms up with me, and then we'll get this party started. I don't always record the show drinking anymore, so this is kind of like a special time for us together here. My friends, I want to thank you for clicking in and tuning in and hanging with the show. Even through this love letter to my drink that I've been babbling about for the last minute or so. So hang tight, we'll get back. We're going to get right back into this. I don't even know what the bloodline of Cain and the secret of the widow's son. That sounds like a good one. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk. That's what we're going to call it. Okay, so we're going to start off here by this guy, Max Heindel, who, like I said, is a Rosicrucian, and he wrote this book called Freemasonry and Catholicism. Hold on, there's a lot of reading here, so I got to... All right, that seems good. Is this all right? Is this okay with you, buddy? Is this all right? Okay. Freemasonry and Catholicism, an exposition of the cosmic facts underlying these 2 great institutions as determined by occult investigations, 1865 to 1919. He actually starts this out beautifully, and I'm going to actually steal this somewhere down the line, but this is great. The great law of analogy is everywhere, the master key of all spiritual mysteries, and although Masonry and Catholicism do not begin until we arrive at the Earth period, they have their prototype in the earlier periods. We shall therefore briefly touch upon these essential facts. In the Saturn, this is, like I said, there's so much of this stuff in the graphic novel, the Ages spot that you just listened to. There's so much of this stuff, even Saturn's in it. In the Saturn period, the Earth in the making was dark. So this, I went and I did clip a lot of this. I did get a lot of it because, like I said, this is adding the context to it. Like the way he opens this up by saying the great law of analogy is everywhere. So this is like when Lucas talks about the prequel Star Wars, and he's like, it rhymes. The events rhyme with each other throughout the history of Star Wars. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here. We're Heimdel's talking about the great law of analogy. So, in the Saturn period, the Earth in the making was dark. Heat, which is the manifestation of the ever-invisible fire, was the only element to manifest. Embryonic mankind was mineral-like. the only lower kingdom of evolving life, unity was everywhere observable, and the lords of mind, who were humans then, were at one among themselves. In the Western wisdom teaching, we speak of the highest initiate of the Saturn period as the Father. In the Sun period, the root of a new element, air, was evolved and coalesced with the true fire, which mark again an always invisible, and which manifested as heat in the Saturn period. Then fire burst into flames, and the dark world became a blazing ball of luminous fire mist. And the word of power, "Let there be light," goes on to say, the fire spirits were actively striving to attain enlargement of consciousness. So this is the fire spirits. This makes sense in a little bit, so just hang with me. I skipped ahead, but we're talking about fire spirits. But the absolute rest, ever clothed in the invisible garment of cosmic space, in it all powers and possibilities are latent. And it seeks to discourage and check any attempt at expenditures of latent power as dynamic energy required in the evolution of a solar system. Water is the agent it used to quench the fire of the active spirits. The zone between the heated center of the separate spirit sphere and at the point where its individual atmosphere meets cosmic space is a battleground of evolving spirits at various stages of evolution. The present angels were humans in the moon period, and the highest initiate in the Holy Spirit, Jehovah. As our humanity and the other kingdoms of life on earth were variously affected by the present elements, so that some like heat, others prefer cold. Some thrive on moisture, and others only require dryness. So also the moon period among the angels, some had an affinity for water, others abhorred it and loved fire. So if you think back to a couple episodes ago, here, I'm just going to mark this so I don't forget where I'm at. When we were talking about the Masonic logo, the square and the compass, and I was kind of pointing it out that this is the unification of duality, right? Like, the circle and the straight line, the male and the female. With this great law of analogies, what we're using it to talk about here is now we're talking about the duality between the water and fire. The spirits of the fire versus the spirits of the water. Some of them had an affinity to fire, some of them abhorred it, and they loved water. So, all this is really talking about, we're actually going to get pretty deep into this concept. Probably not so deep, but we're gonna definitely talk about it. This is all talking about Crowley's definition of the great work, or definition of the highest thing magic could do is the uniting of opposites. That's all that we're talking about. So I'm actually going to dive right back into it, okay? The continued cycles of condensation and evaporation of the moisture surrounding the fiery center eventually caused incrustation. And it was the purpose of Jehovah to mold this red earth, translated Adam, into forms wherein to imprison and quench the spirits of fire. Here, this is an idea from a Gnostic worldview, where you're taking this divine spark, the spirit of fire, and you're imprisoning it in like this mineral body when you quench the heated earth. To this end, he issued the creed of fiat that the prototypes of fish, fowl, and every living thing appeared, even included the primitive human form, which were created by his angels. Thus, he hoped to make all the lives and moves subservient to his will. So when you listen to my radio spot for the ages and you hear him talking about a tyrant god. This is it. He hopes to make all the lives and moves subservient to his will. Against his plan, a minority of the angels rebelled. They too had a great affinity for fire, to bear contact with water, and refused to create the forms as order, but thereby they, and at the same time, deprived themselves of an opportunity of evolution along the conventional lines and became an anomaly in nature. And furthermore, having repudiated the authority of Jehovah, they must work out their own salvation in their own manner. Again, that's an idea right out of a Gnostic worldview, is that there's the salvation is a personal act. You can't rely on a savior, you can't rely on a priest, you can't rely on a god. You have to rely on yourself and the experiences that you go through to gain the wisdom and inner knowledge to have the gnosis of yourself. Back to this thing. I know I'm mixing in my own thoughts here, but I'm just trying to I'm trying to focus it for you guys. How this has been accomplished by Lucifer, their great leader, will be made plain in the following articles. For the present, suffice it to say that in the Earth period, the various planets were differentiated to provide proper evolutionary environment for each class of spirit. The angels under Jehovah were set to work within the inhabitants of all planets having moons, while Lucifer spirits have their abode upon the planet Mars, and the angel Gabriel is represented on Earth of the lunar hierarchy presided over by Jehovah, and the angel Samael is the ambassador for the martial forces of Lucifer. Gabriel, who announced the coming birth of Jesus to Mary, and his lunar angels, I'll just say, and its lunar angels, are therefore the givers of physical life, while Samael and the host of Mars are the angels of death. So, aside drawing this dichotomy between, or this duality between water and fire, I want you guys to think about the holy water at the back of the Catholic Church. You go in, there's holy water as a little sacrament, and now I want you to think of like a fiery forge that's at the front of a workshop. This is the duality that we're talking about. The back of a Catholic church, you have to bless yourself with water, but in the workshop there's a fiery forge at the front of the shop, and there you don't you're not being sanctified by the water. You're putting it to use. You're using it to bend material to your will. All right, and I'm going to mention this. I probably mentioned this before in the show, but one of my favorite comic book series is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Not the movie. Get that movie out of your brain. It's a comic book done by Kevin O'Neill, whose artwork is fantastic, and it's written by Alan Moore. And this topic, while I'm reading this, what I'm getting to, looking at what's coming up next, I thought that this would be a fun time to kind of break and get into this. There's this. Okay, so there was the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 1, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 2, and then there was this thing called the Black Dossier. In the Black Dossier, Moore is writing. He's writing as this character Oliver Haddo, who is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in the universe of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He's an analog to Aleister Crowley, and he writes an article that's included in the Black Dossier. And Alan Moore, just so you know, I'm reading this because it's in one of my favorite comic books, but also Alan Moore is not your regular comic book writer. He's a practicing magician, and he worships an imaginary snake god. And if you don't know Alan Moore, it's a whole different fucking thing all to itself. But this thing that he writes is super interesting, and it directly relates to what I'm going to be talking about when I get to this next block of writing for this episode. So I just want to say he's writing as this character Oliver Haddo, and this article is called "The Descent of the Gods," and he says the following, distilling as it does a longer and more comprehensive treatise published in the Soltist, Volume 1, 6, concerning mysteries that will prove imperviable to all save those adepts who have fully understood my own Liber Logos, dictated by an unseen presence in Cairo during 1904. This is funny because, like I said, this is this universe's analog to Crowley, and this is directly, like, this could be Crowley. He's talking about his Liber Logos, and he's being dictated to by some presence. All right, in 1904, I'm not going to laugh for the rest of this. For this reason, I have, where possible, simplified the manners discussed in the text, so that they may prove lucid to the scrutiny of a more generalized and averagely intelligent readership. From scant surviving ancient accounts and the certain material received during magical investigations, it is possible to ascertain that the earliest contact between our material realm and the various ethereal dimensions adjoining it probably occurred some millions of years ago, perhaps shortly after the emergence of proto-human life on this planet. The celestial energies concerned are referred to in the book of Genesis as Elohim, a curious Hebrew word that is at once masculine, feminine, and furthermore plural, and which may be broadly understood in context as the gods and goddesses. Our inference surely being that the Christian God of the Old Testament was perhaps one amongst many such divinely manifested beings. This is not to deny that all such manifestations may ultimately be various emanations of a single monotheistic source, simply to point out that the process involved may be at once more subtle and more complex than generally allowed in the philosophies of our conventional religions. And I'm saying, give Alan Moore an amen, brother, for that. Can I hear an amen? Can I hear another amen for Alan Moore, brother? And can I hear an amen for the Elohim? All right, we're going to get into this Elohim business in a lecture from Rudolph Steiner from Berlin right after this. Okay, so this is, like I said, from Rudolph Steiner, Berlin, 1904. It's from a lecture called The Temple Legend, the Essence and the Task of Freemasonry from the Point of View of Spiritual Science. One of the Elohim united himself with Eve, and out of his union of a divine creative spirit with Eve, Cain was born. Then another of the Elohim, Jehovah, or Adonai, created Adam, who is to be regarded as the primal man of the third root race. This Adam then united himself with Eve, and from this union Abel was born. Thus, at the outset of human evolution, there were two starting points: Cain, the direct descendant of one of the Elohim with Eve, and Abel, who was with the help of a divinely created human being, Adam, is the true representative of Jehovah. The whole conception underlying this creation story, according to the temple legend, is based upon the fact that there is a kind of enmity between Jehovah and everything which is derived from the other Elohim and their descendants, the sons of fire. This being the designation of the descendants of Cain, according to the temple legend. Okay, so I gotta stop just because I'm matching the story here. So in the Sons of Fire, in Heindel's story, it went back to the Saturn period. Rudolph Steiner here brings the Sons of Fire thing only up to Cain. He doesn't mention the earth cooling and the spirits and the angels of water and all that stuff. So I'm only mentioning that not to confuse it, but to keep everything straight. And also just to illustrate that I'm jumping between text here to get all the parts of the story that we're telling. This being the designation of the descendants of Cain, according to the temple legend. Jehovah creates enmity between Cain and his race and Abel and his race. The outcome of this was that Cain slew Abel. That is the archenemy which exists between those who receive their existence from the divine worlds and those who work out everything for themselves. The fact that Abel makes the sacrifice of an animal to Jehovah while Cain brings the fruits of the earth is an illustration which the Bible gives too. Of this contrast between the race of Cain and the race of Abel. Cain has to rest from the earth, which hard labor of the fruits which are necessary for the sustenance of mankind, and Abel takes what is already living and has been prepared for his livelihood. The race of Cain creates, as it were, the living out of the lifeless. Abel takes up what is already alive, what is already imbued with the breath of life. Abel's sacrifice is pleasing to God, but Cain's is not. Thus we find two kinds of human beings characterized in Cain and Abel. One consists of those who accept that God prepared for them. The others, a free humanity, are those who till the soil and labor to win living products out of what is lifeless. Those who regard themselves as the son of Cain are they who understand that the temple legend and wish to live by it. So basically you got a hustler and a basic bitch. That's back briefly to Heindel to finally introduce this term. This Masonic legend has points of variance from as well as agreement with the Bible story. It states that Jehovah created Eve, then Lucifer, the spirit Samael, united with her. But then he was ousted by Jehovah and forced to leave her before the birth of her son Cain, who was thus the son of a widow. Cain slew Abel, and Abel and his priestly class were replaced by another son of Adam and Eve, Seth. But the line or race of Cain began. This class is loath to take things on faith and to prone or prove all things by the light of reason. These people believe in works rather than faith, and by their dauntless courage and inexhaustible energy, they have transformed the trackless wilderness of the world to a garden full of life and beauty. So, love, in fact, the sons of Cain have forgotten that the garden of God, the kingdom of heaven, whence they were expelled by the decree of the lunar god Jehovah. Against him they are in constant rebellion because he has tied them by the umbilical cable toe and have lost their spiritual sight and are impressed in the forehead of the body where it is said Cain was marked. And they wander as prodigal sons in the comparative darkness of the material world. Listen to this. This is all Gnostic terminology, material world. Oblivious to their high and noble estate until they find the door of the temple and ask and receive the light. This is from one of their initiation rituals. As then the Freemason, or children of light, as they are instructed in their methods of building a new temple without the sound of hammer. And when the spirit realizes that it is far from its heavenly home, the prodigal, feeding upon its unsatisfactory husks of the material world and apart from its father, it is poor, naked, and blind when it's knocked at the door of the mystic temple like that of the Rosicrucians and asks for light. When it receives the desired instructions after due qualifications by building an ethereal soul body, a temple or house eternal in the heavens, not made with hands and made without the sound of hammer, but its nakedness is clothed with that house. And then the neophyte receives the word, the open sesame to the inner worlds, and learns the travel in foreign parts in the invisible worlds. There he takes soul flights into the heavenly regions and qualifies for higher degrees under the direct instructions from the grand architect of the universe who fashioned both the heavens and the earth. Such is the temperament of the widow's son, inherited from their divine progenitor Samael, and given by him unto their ancestor Cain. Their past history is a struggle with adverse conditions. Their achievement is victory wrested from the opposing forces by indomitable courage and persistent effort, unchecked by temporary defeat. All right, so this part isn't not in these Masonic texts that we were talking about tonight. However, something to think about. In the narrative of the Old Testament, this is where Cain goes and does what? We know this, right? We've talked about this before. Cain, after the expulsion, after he gets cursed, I should say, and he gets cursed and he's got to walk the earth, what does he do? You guys should know this. He goes and he builds the first city called Enoch. Now, this is not to be confused with the character Enoch. Before there are two characters, Enoch. It should not be confused with either one of them. He builds a city called Enoch. He has a kid called Enoch, and then later on, a few verses later, there's another Enoch. So let's just the idea is that he builds this city. And he built this city on rock and roll. Whoa. So this is him. This is him being a spirit of fire, constructing, cutting, stones, building a city. He winds up raising a family and multiplies. And so we also know that after this, the angels named the Grigori, or the Watchers, come down. We know this from the Enoch episodes and from the Giant of Kandahar episodes. These Watchers come down and they teach men things like metallurgy. They teach men things like astronomy, the cutting of roots, all sorts of stuff. My favorite thing that they teach them is the beautification of the eyelids and all this good stuff. And then they went on to breed with earth chicks, because you know why, guys. It's always about the earth chicks, and they have offsprings, and this is why God sends the flood, right? Remember all this stuff? We've been through this stuff before. Remember, this is all going on. Remember this while you're going forward in the thing. But we're going to flip over now to this guy named Albert G. Mackey, and he wrote this book called In the History of Freemasonry, Its Legends, Traditions, and Chronology. This was written 1898 or in 1905. Now, I have to say I have not read this out loud, but the spellings here and stuff are crazy, so it might take me a little bit to bump through this, okay? So Albert G. Mackey says, now that these worthy sciences were first begun, I shall you tell, before Noah's flood there was a man called Lamech. It is written in the Bible that in the 3rd chapter of Genesis, and this Lamech had 2 wives. We actually know this story too. I'm going to still bump through this. And one had Ada and the other had Sela. But the first wife, Ada, he got 2 sons. And that one, Jabal, and the other, Tubal. And by that other wife, Zella, he had son and daughter. And these 4 children founded and began all of the sciences in the world. And this elder son, Jabal, founded the science of geometry and departed flocks of sheep and lambs and probably goats in the field, and first wrought the house of stone and tree. And as noted in the chapter above, and his brother Tubal found the science of music, songs of the tongue, harp, and organ, and the third brother Tubal-Cain found smithcraft of gold, silver, copper, iron, and steel. And the daughter found the craft of weaving, and these children knew well that God would take vengeance for sin either by fire or water. Wherefore they writ their science, and they had found in 2 pillars of stone, that they might be founded after Noah's flood. And the one stone was marble, for it would not burn with fire. And the other stone was clamped lanterns, and it would not drown with no water. Our intent is to tell you truly how and in what manner these stones were found, that these sciences were written in. All right, so if you're looking at this as a whole thing, and these kids are saying they invented these sciences, but if we're going to mix in this Gregory story, the story of the Watchers and the Nephilim, they just learned it from these guys. But the important part is that they wrote them down. And they wrote them down how? They wrote them down 2 ways. Lomas and Knight says that the pillars, one was wood and one was stone. You know, and that was the wood wouldn't drown and the stone wouldn't burn. But they wrote all these sciences on here. Jesus Christ, I gotta catch my breath. All this reading takes it out of me, bros. The flood eventually came, and Tubal-Cain dug underground fortifications, and even though a lot of them died, Tubal-Cain and one of his sons survived. The wife of Ham, this whole Ham and Canaan situation is hilarious. We'll get to that eventually at some point in time. The wife of Ham ended up liking the son of Tubal-Cain more than the sons of Adam, and eventually he became the ancestor of Nimrod, who we all know. We all know Nimrod. We did 2 episodes on him. The Tower of Babel episode and the World War Z episode. Go check them out. And it says, Hermes, the father of wise men, he found one of the 2 pillars of stone and found the science written there, and he taught it to other men in the making of the Tower of Babylon. There was masonry, first made much of, and the king of Babylon, at the hate of Nimrod, was a mason himself and loved well the sciences. And it is said that the masters and histories. So, I gotta. All right, so actually, like, I still have I'm not even halfway through my shit here. Like, this is going way slower than I thought. So I'm gonna have to stop. It's about. I'm looking at my Gucci. It's about that time. I'm gonna hang off here. I mean, I got you guys from the beginning of the Saturnian period to right after the flood. So that's a good spot to stop. And then next we're going to pick up, and we're actually going to introduce the star of the show, a fellow by the name of Hiram Habif. So I'm going to try to do this. I'm running out of time on some stuff. I'm going to try to do this as a double episode. So hopefully these will both drop on Monday. Crossing my fingers. So there. So this has been the Ambercast episode 88. Please, I want to encourage you guys to rate and review the show, like it, star it, give all the stars, tell all your friends about it, whatever. Like, I'm really looking for some. I have some room here for some rapid expansion, and I need some help to do that. So I'm looking at you. If you're like, is he looking at me? Yes, I'm looking at all of you. I'm looking at every fucking single one of you. I'm in the market for some rapid expansion, and I would love some help doing that. I would love some help doing it for sure. So we're gonna do one more commercial, and then I want to ask you guys to hang in. I got a group named Bitter Incorporated, and they do a song. It's funny. Go look at. I have a Bandcamp link in the show notes, and it's this. I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to describe it wrong because music is not my strong point. But they sing a lot about the stuff. If you listen to the show, you will recognize a lot of the stuff that they talk about. Anyhow, we're gonna play a song by them called "The Widow's Son" right after this. So I want to ask you guys, please support the show, rate and review. It doesn't cost anything. I'm trying not to hammer you guys over the head with this stuff anymore, but I fucking need some help. That stigmatastudios.com. Pick up some comic books. Go to the links up on top. Find me on social media. Do all that stuff. You have any silly questions or something you want to ask me? You have any feedback about the show? Let me know how you liking this Masonic stuff. Let me know if you have any questions. Fucking correct me if I'm wrong about something. But anyhow, what we're gonna do? Nope. Negative. No. No. That's.
Stigmata Studios presents the Jin Jihad. The Jin Jihad kicks your face with myths, mysteries, epic battles, suicide bombers, quirky characters, and divine power armor. In this epic graphic novel, the warrior archangels descend on a city in chaos. It's all-out war. The non-standard assembly battles an ancient terrorist organization and their ultimate weapon, the corrupted, magically enhanced, unstoppable monster, the Jinn. This graphic novel is a wild ride. It's one part distant Arab myth, one part Old Testament angelic vengeance, and one part unique heroic tough guys. Available on Amazon. Get more info on the Jin Jihad and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
All right, guys, this is Bitter Inc., and the name of the song is The Widow's Son, and I hope you guys like this as much as I like it. I believe it's a genius, and it's awesome, and here we go. This has been the Ambercast episode 88. I'm John Towers, www.stigmatastudios.com, and rate and review. Fucking help me out.
Oh Lord my God, is there no help for the widow's son? We're in distress, engulfed in stress and loneliness. An absurd quest, an empty test. Only rebellion conquers death. Our escape, our condition is to